Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go.
All right, here with my friend Mark Stephan, who is the play-by-play voice of the Calgary Stampeders. Going into season, what is it now? I lost count.
29.
29. Oh, we're coming 29.
I guess 28 if you throw out the COVID years. So.
Yeah, whatever.
A lot.
Do you have you're still young. I'm not saying you're old, but do you have in your mind, do you have an idea how long you want to go, Mark?
I guess I have sort of metrics and checkpoints. Do I have my health? Yes. Do I still want to do it? Yes. Do I still think and hear from others that I can do the job properly to the levels that they need? Yes. So I guess those are the metrics, and so far I'm hitting them also.
Yeah, and I enjoy listening to your call. Now, what keeps you coming back, though? What do you like most about the job?
Well, first, the CFL is just a wonderful league with wonderful people, and the game is just crazy amazing. You can see everything, something new seemingly every game. I grew up watching and being with the Stampeders all my life, so it was easy to be around them. I mean, I'd been around them at one level for a long time, and so a big sense of familiarity too, and just the fun to help paint the stories of the Stampeders for Stampeder fans, because lots of people did that for me a long time ago.
So for a couple of years now, it's been a downtime for the Calgary Stampeders. We kind of touched on this before. Actually, I touched on this with Craig Dickinson. Do you think the Stampeders have been unfairly tagged here with kind of how by former players, by just the outside perception on how the team is kind of, you get a sense that it's almost, I don't want to say circling the drain, but it's not where it once was.
Oh, no, I get that. And I think there's been a little bit of piling on. I'm not going to lie to you about that some people are seeing joy in the fact that they aren't on top. And some of the players, some of the comments are fair. I don't want to just completely dismiss them, but at the same time, just after you've won a Grey Cup, all you can do to think about is trash in Calgary. I wonder about that as well. So they've got to do better. Let's not kid anybody here, but I think there has been a little bit of a piling on effect. But you know what? Be amazed if they reverse the records of the last 2 years, how little of these comments would be found.
So James Vaughters and Mike Rose get cut. Just your thoughts on that.
Well, they promised change, and they aren't kidding. These are two highly paid players that did have, big contracts on them. I would say that both were good last year. I won't say that both were great last year. And the Stampeders' front four was among the lowest in sacks. And also they gave up a lot of yards running. So the team overall said they're going to make changes, going to get things better. And these are two of the moves. But I won't lie to you, they were certainly huge names. It was a bit of a jolt to see both of them released. I didn't see it coming that both would be released. I thought possibly one. But it is a bit of a jolt. As I say, the Stamps are at least living up to their word.
Yeah,
that they're going to be, active and changing up things and doing it differently.
Are you? How do you feel as being a veteran announcer when you look at, this guy's owed a $35,000 roster bonus, this guy's owed a 26? I'm just making up. Wolodarski in Winnipeg, Boris Beatty in Edmonton, who I think did cost them probably 3 games with missed goals. You got your guys here. How do you feel? How do you look at it when players kind of, they're due roster bonuses, but they're done?
Yeah, it is a delicate situation there. You can look at it and say it's kind of cold business just to dump them. But on the other hand, it does give guys a sense of where they fit in with the organization. It's a bit of an off-season milestone. And if the teams don't want to do it and pay it, well, they let the guys go. Specific to some of those players you mentioned, they've now got a jump on the rest of the free agent market. They can talk to other players. Is it going to get them a contract easier or under different circumstances? It might, because they can talk to anybody now. They'd otherwise have to jump into the pool with everybody on February the 11th, if indeed they were pending free agents, which Vaughters and Rose, by the way, weren't. But, I know what you're saying. It is a little cold, but I guess I can see from the team viewpoint, but it also protects the players to an extent. But on balance, would I rather have $35,000 and be looking for work? I'd probably rather have $35,000.
Yeah, probably. That's why I never really jumped all over Darian Durant when he took that Bomber signing bonus and then decided to quit. Because let's be honest, it is a cold business and it goes both ways.
Yeah, I see it totally.
Yeah, so I want to talk. Before we talked, the last time we talked, we were like, okay, is Jake Maier going to be back in Calgary? Obviously he's not. A lot of CFL fans watch this podcast, but it is Rider skewed. So just to the Rider fans, what are they getting in Jake Maier from your vantage point the last couple of years?
Well, you mentioned about the piling on effect. There were a lot of people that did pile on because he did have some good numbers. His problem was finish. And I boil it down to a sentence for him. He did just about all of the expected, good completion ratio, good yardage totals, ability to stay healthy, but he didn't do much of the exceptional. And if you're going to be a playoff team, you have to do the exceptional, those spectacular plays, and him running around. He's not the best runner. I'm not going to kid anyone, but he's not afraid to run either. So I think they're getting a guy that, I think there was a feeling that he just had no place in the league. And I never believed that for a minute. But he's probably in the right role. He was probably in a tough situation here because of his predecessor, whom he was compared to. And he can play in the league. I have zero hesitation in saying that. And I wish no ill to Trevor Harris, but, life is you need a second quarterback that may play, and he may be the guy, and I think he can play. So, it probably was time to shake hands here, but I think Saskatchewan will be happy with him once they see him in action there and making the plays that he can make. But he was an excellent teammate here. He'll blend right in, and we'll see where fate takes him.
Well, you got a guy that is showing he's a great teammate and a great leader. He showed that this past year in Vernon Adams Jr. The thing with VA, though, and I consider him a friend, we talk regularly, but the thing with VA is he's never stuck. Like, he's never been the guy somewhere. So I'm interested to see how this pans out in Calgary. As a veteran announcer, your thoughts on VA and what you expect from him?
Well, he'll get a chance here. There's no, there's no experienced competition here to chase him out. So he will get the chance here. Make no mistake about that. There's a lot of things, and he admits that the thing that turned him around is what he said to us when he came to Calgary. That really kind of turned him around is when he got to Montreal and worked with Trevor Harris, who was so detail focused and showed him how to do things on a different way. And maybe he relied a little bit on his athletic gifts too much before, and teams liked him, but, they just saw some issues when maybe he wasn't as consistent as he wants, but he's motivated here. He is an excellent player. That's not in dispute when he's running around. And as I say, he'll get the chance here. So if there ever was a time that he was, moving around a bit, that's not going to be the case here, barring complete disaster.
Hey, back to Maier for a second. Do you think maybe Trevor Harris can have the same type of effect on Jake Maier? I know Maier and VA aren't the exact same player, but you know what I mean?
I agree. Oh, why not? I mean, why not? You talk about guys, maybe he has moved around a little too much too in Trevor Harris, but he's been very successful, had a tremendous prolonged career. And I think, Jake and Bo Levi Mitchell were very close when they were here. So I can't imagine a circumstance where Jake Maier wouldn't want to sit down and visit with Trevor Harris and pick his brain on what he's done to play in this league as long as he has. So, yeah, I think I certainly think he can help him. No question about that.
Now, this is an open-ended question. We didn't do any pre-scouting. We tried yesterday to do the interview, but the one thing or another happened. We couldn't do it. So I'm just throwing this out at you. I don't expect I don't expect you to nail it. Okay. But I'm going to ask you this, being in the booth 20, going on 29 years here around the league, Adam Bighill probably is done. There's a good chance he's done after being released by the Blue Bombers. Where does Adam Bighill rank for you on defensive players that you've watched? And if you want to skew it down to linebacker.
Well, I'll zero it down to linebackers. Oh boy. Well, certainly he'd be right up there with, players like his former coach, Mike O'Shea, who was tremendous all the years. He's probably top 5 in league history. I mean, when you sit down and add up his production and what he's done through the years, I'm kind of with you. I mean, it's not a nice way to end things. I wish the Blue Bombers, truthfully, could have handled it a little better. Just, he shouldn't have to phone to say that they're not offering him a contract. I mean, that happens. There's no good way to say farewell to an elite player like that. I called him a playing Hall of Famer in the last couple of years. Yeah. And so certainly he's right up there anyway. In the recent era, you got Mike O'Shea, Chip Cox had some great years for Montreal. I mean, you start going back and back and back, but he certainly is right up there among the best, and won the Outstanding Defensive Player award. So he is really good. And but is there another chance for him? I don't know. But if you want to know where I think his future is, I think he'd make a fantastic coach.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of linebackers, Judge is out, Oramalade's in. What do you make of that transaction?
That was a jolt. That was a huge jolt. I got to say that while lots went wrong for the Stampeders last year, I didn't put Cam Judge among their issues last year. I thought he was good. Maybe not as good as 23, but he was really good. I don't have any problems with that. It's a huge trade on many levels. First, it's an established starter for an established starter. That's just a straight 1-for-1 like that. You're trading a Canadian starter for an American starter. You're taking on additional payroll, which the Stampeders did do. And as I say, that's quite a jolt because you've got a guy that has played very well. Cam Judge has been excellent here. So has Flo Oramaladd. They didn't sign him a couple of years ago. Well, now he's back with the contract they didn't give him the first time around. So, but it was a jolt. I have to admit that was a heavyweight trade with two established, successful starters being moved for each other. And the irony is, of course, they both had played for their now current teams previously. It's just kind of a crazy trade that way.
So were you surprised? There's been a lot of change in Calgary. Like you said, give it to them. They said they'd be changing things. Mark Killam, the longest serving assistant coach in the league in one place, now the head coach in Edmonton, joins your son there in Edmonton, who's in a support role. Were you surprised by any of that went on, that he left and that he's in Edmonton now as the head coach?
Well, specific to Edmonton, I'll just say this. He had long been sort of the next guy, the next assistant that was going to make the move up. Did I know it was exactly going to be Edmonton 2025? No, frankly, I thought it would have been earlier, if you want the truth. But, maybe teams saw him in a little bit of a different light now that he wasn't tied to the Stampeders and one team, and maybe just felt a little freer to talk to him. I don't know. Or maybe they felt that he'd be more receptive to them, because I'm sure, I know he'd make a fantastic interview. That's no question about that. Again, part of the change, they let two coordinators go. This is big time. What they did is part of the change, and it's not change because they weren't successful. The day Mark Killam went into that meeting with Dave Dickinson, he was a good coach. The moment he left that meeting with Dave Dickinson, he was still a good coach. But sometimes you just have to do things a little differently. And same defensively with Brent Monson. He was a good coach the minute he went into that meeting with Dave Dickinson, and he's a good coach when he came out. So, coaching in his hometown now of Hamilton. So sometimes you just have to approach things differently. And, at some level, it's kind of sad to see all that experience go. But again, the Stampeders have to just recognize they were in the basement in 2024.
Well, my friend, you know him well too, Craig Dickinson, who's been there before. Dave's brother has head coaching experience, which will help Dave maybe take a little off his plate. And if there's, you lose Mark Killam, who is a tried and true special teams coordinator. His teams have been great for a lot of his time in Calgary. But if there's one thing, people here in Saskatchewan, Craig Dickinson, terrible head coach, blah, 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 which once again, piling on, I think we're prisoners of the moment sometimes. But I think we're both in agreement here. Craig Dickinson is an excellent special teams coordinator.
Well, who taught Mark Killam?
Yeah. Exactly.
There's your answer right there. So that's that. And specific to Dave, yes, I get the family tie. I know there's been, did they move Mark Killam on just so he could hire his brother? I'm going to say this. Craig Dickinson has been hired by many organizations in the league. Okay. So he's a qualified, CFL coach. Obviously, they're each other's best friends. I'm talking about Dave and Craig. But, Craig has experience in this area. He'll do something a little different, and I think I could see that coming, though, that if the team struggled, that would be one of the moves they would make. But Craig has a wealth of CFL experience. He could have coached in the league next year, but it certainly doesn't hurt that it's in Calgary.
Okay, so and speaking of special teams, you know what? I had this guy lined up, but he couldn't come on. We'll get him at a later date. If there's one other guy in the organization that ages better like a fine wine than Mark Stephan, it is Rene Paredes. When he gets on, I hated being the voice of the other team because I just knew when he's coming on to make the kick, it's through. It's automatic. You must be shocked if he ever misses a field goal.
Yeah, he's amazing. They didn't just sign him to 2 extra years because it's good old Rene. We just like having him around. He's good. He's still very good. He had another amazing season this year, and he's got 2 more. He said, "No, I'm not going to sign any more after this." I don't believe that. I don't believe him. Let me see the farewell news conference where at the end of 26 he says he's walking away because he's successful. He's good. He likes it. Inevitably people do move on, but boy, he's fought Father Time because I think his last 3 to 4 years have been fantastic. If there's any signs of slowing down, they aren't visible at all, as far as I can see.
So I'm going to let you go on 2 questions. This one, the NFL Super Bowl is coming up, not this Sunday, the following Sunday. It'll be the first Super Bowl in 42 years I don't watch because I cannot stand watching Kansas City get all the breaks again. I just won't watch it. I just can't watch it. I borderline almost want to say it's rigged just because it's like, Mark, they've won 17 one-score games. And I get it. I get it. They've got a good team. But they're like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They seem to get all the calls. Who do you got? Who do you got in this game? I can't see Kansas City losing this 3-peat chance.
Well, that's what I say. I think they'll win. I'm not quite there. I just have fatigue with them, though. I'm just bored with them. The Kansas City Chiefs, but I guess I'll try and stay awake for the game. And, Philadelphia, you can't discount 55 points in a game that they put up, and Hurts, and also Barkley, who I think is terrific and explains why the New York Giants are where the New York Giants are. But I think Kansas City will win. I've got fatigue on both of those teams. I was dying, for variety's sake, for Buffalo or Washington to win.
Me too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And lastly, let's talk a little hockey because you know hockey too.
Yeah.
That's a nice story. If we were, I believe if we were starting today, it would be the Flames and the Oilers in the first round of the playoffs. I expected Edmonton to be in the playoffs. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't expect Calgary to be there. This is a nice story going on in Calgary.
Oh, it sure is. They've done a lot of good things to maintain that playoff hold just right around the 8th spot. One of the things that they've got going for them is goaltender Dustin Wolf, the young rookie who's been thrust into the fray, and he's kind of basically taken over the number 1 starting job. I know there's temptation to play him every night, but they've got to resist that somehow. So, his record at home last night against Washington, or the other night against Washington, was a really rare loss at home. He's really carried them, especially at home. They do have a very good home record overall, but there's a couple of things that they're going to have to fight through. The headwinds, their special teams are not very good, and especially the penalty kill. And they aren't scoring an awful lot. They've got innumerable games with 3 or fewer goals. So it's fortunate they've had good goaltending, but boy, that puts a lot of pressure on them. So I'm not going to rule them out at all of the playoffs. I'm like you. I was a little surprised, but here they are. They do have a good balanced top 2 lines there. Their defense is about as active as it gets, starting with Mackenzie Weegar, who's having a tremendous year. So, why not? Why not the Calgary Flames? They've got some headwinds to fight in the second half, but they've survived them so far. And like you say, they're sitting on the playoff doorstep right now.
Wasn't that entertaining the other night to see Tom Wilson kind of fake like he had something with his side, and then Rasmus Anderson was bugging up and he was on the Jumbotron? That was hilarious.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that'll get a lot of replays on those different highlight shows. Yeah, it was pretty crazy there. So, by the way, just related to Washington, they're really good.
Yes.
See them firsthand. They are really good. And could they win the whole thing? Yeah, they could. I think they're that good. It's not just the Ovechkin show. I think maybe the least reported story in the NHL this year has been Logan Thompson coming over to Washington and what he has done. It's coincidental. He's a Calgary guy, but he has played really well. Bet on himself this year, and the other day got the huge ticket. So they're a really good team.
Yeah, you got Mark Stephan kind of money, 6 years, $35.1 million, right?
Yeah. Well, they're not just all Ovechkin, although that is a fantastic story too.
It is. And lastly, in this business, you've been doing it longer than me. You must get tired of cliches. You can plug and play different quotes. I really love what Jim Rutherford said the other day. We can't not win a Stanley Cup with this group with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. It is irreconcilable. It raised a lot of eyebrows, but hey, at least it's candid. As a media guy, I like that.
Well, it's candid, but isn't he just sealing his own fate? I'd fire a guy if that happened on his watch.
Yeah. He signed
responsible. Bingo. He just fired himself. I'd fire his rear end if I'm the owner right now. That it's such a mess. Well, it's somebody. I signed them, but it's everybody else's problem.
That's true.
I'd fire him because he did that once before. Remember when Bruce Boudreau made some, talking about how he didn't just say, "Hey, we need to do better. I expect more from Bruce." Okay, fair enough. But he got in. Our power play wasn't doing any good. We don't have this. We didn't have any structure in training camp, dude. You know what? Those are conversations you have behind the scenes. And maybe Bruce Boudreau wasn't the right guy for Vancouver. I don't know. But when you got a guy leaving banana peels every step of the way when you walk into the room, That's a problem.
I love it. Great lines. Hey, and how do you feel? One more hockey thing. How do you feel about this Four Nations Cup? I'm not really getting into it because I don't want to get political, but I know Russia and all that stuff. But to me, it's not an international tournament if you can't have Russian, you can't have Czechia, and you can't. I'm not that jazzed for it.
I'm kind of, I need, maybe I'll get into it as it gets closer, but I'm really on a low boil right now about it. I'm sure it'll be nice. I'm sure it'll be fun. But I'm with you. There's a lot of great players that just can't play because of their nationality. And
yeah.
The Olympics, everybody can play. Yes, the Russians are out. But as you say, some of the Czech players are out, and other countries have other players. So it's good. I'm sure it'll be nice. I'm sure I will end up watching a good chunk of it, but I'm not quite sold on it just yet, but maybe as it gets closer, because it'll be the only NHL to watch. So
I guess I like how you put it, slow boil. Hey man, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Glad we could connect, and I can't wait for free agency. We'll talk to you on the other side.
Yep. On the 11th at 10 o'clock Mountain Time, and away we go.
I love it. And thanks to our buddy Mark Stephan for joining us here, the great play-by-play man of the Calgary Stampeders. Just before we thank our sponsors and wrap things up, talking to Mark there about the annual rite of passage in the CFL, and it's why I did not get too upset or butthurt like a lot of Bomber fans did when Darian Durant back in the day took the $70,000 signing bonus and decided to not play for the Blue Bombers, because teams, they have no problem signing players to contracts and then just nixing them and saying, you know what? Now we're not going to pay you that roster bonus. Because check this out. The Lions have cut American receiver Alexander Hollins. TSN's Farhan Lalji was first to report the news. The 28-year-old from Missouri made 61 catches for 937 yards and 6 touchdowns this past year, his third as the Lion. He had been bothered by some leg problems, some knee problems. He was due a $75,000 offseason roster bonus and was on pace to earn $230,000. So he has been released. Hamilton Tiger Cats have cut American defensive lineman Dwayne Hendricks. The 28-year-old was due a $20,000 offseason roster bonus on February 1st. Edmonton Elks have cut Canadian offensive lineman Brett Boyko. He was owed a $25,000 offseason roster bonus on February the 1st, and he was going to earn right around $200,000 in 2025. So it's kind of what happens before free agency. The negotiating window goes, I believe it's Sunday to Sunday, from the 2nd to the 9th. And then we get down to business on February 11th for CFL free agency. So a lot of contracts in professional sports, and the CFL is quite the same. A lot of the contracts look good on paper, but aren't totally what they seem. And I have a lot of respect for CFL players because they don't get rich. Quarterbacks make really good money. Some players make decent money. Let's be honest, they're only playing 6 months out of the year, but they're putting their bodies through hell and they're training year round. I was just at the Queen City Soccer Center as my kid continues to go through the paces for the combine, and he was working out today as I'm talking to you with a Joe Jackson Ford Key and Schaefer Baker, the riders, of course, they're being trained by their strength and conditioning coach, Dan Farthing. And Farthing, a cousin of mine, I've hired him to help Ethan Farthing very successfully running level 10. So I know what these guys go through. I have a lot of respect for them, especially CFL guys, because they are not getting rich. Sometimes we think of them as rich pro athletes. That's not the case in the Canadian Football League. And speaking of the Combine, really looking forward to that. Obviously, I have a vested interest, and if you follow this show, you might be sick of hearing it, but I'm not going to apologize for being proud of my son and what he's done. It's a long road from the RMF and the Adam Thunderbirds to where he is now, with a chance to compete in front of CFL brass in his hometown of Regina. So I'm really proud of him. He's one of 10 defensive backs who are going to the National Combine with an automatic invite. Also included in that from the Can West, which, by the way, is the best U Sports conference in football in Canada, bar none. Delaney Robinson from the University of Regina Rams. Nate Boscheman, who is Ethan's teammate with the Dinos. He's a top 20 prospect. So that's from Canada West. Also, Romeo Nash from the Alberta Golden Bears. Another one to watch who's going to be joining me on the podcast on the next installment is Jackson Finley. My buddy Brooks Finley, the former rider, special teamer and linebacker, played with the BC Lions too, I believe. Brooks Finley, his nephew, Jackson Finley from Western, is going to be one of the top prospects, expected to grade out real well in the Combine, and a smart kid too. He will join me on an upcoming episode of this podcast, Ballsy Uncut. Linebackers, Chopper Hippie, who was the the Crestview Chrysler Ram Tough Defensive Player of the Year at their end of the year awards banquet, which I was there and handed out that trophy and some Ram gear to Hippie, and then he joined me on this podcast. He has been invited, as has Lane Novak from the U of S, Chase Tatterin from Alberta, and Daniel Flanagan, one of Ethan's teammates from Calgary. Those are Can West players. Then D lineman Ty Anderson from Alberta. An automatic invite, Liam Reed from the Calgary Dinos, which is kind of a weird one because Liam Reed didn't get an invite. His coach, Ryan Sheehan, really went to bat to push for the teams to invite him automatically. And the teams were kind of like, well, what do we have him as, a D lineman or a linebacker? And as the story goes, Sheehan goes, who gives a shit? He was an all-star in the Can West, the best conference in U Sports. How can't you take him as an automatic invite? So he's going there. In fairness, though, from what I've been told by a few agents, CFL teams really don't focus. Like, yeah, they're kind of looking at draft stuff. They are. But they're more focused on their own backyard and free agency and really don't zero in on the draft. And maybe it's like that in the NFL too, but the CFL teams really don't zero in on the Canadian college draft till after free agency. And I know GM Jeremy O'Day of the Riders was quoted saying a couple of the player positions that are really talent-laden in free agency are receivers and Canadian offensive linemen. 4 offensive linemen, Gavin Cokes from UBC, Arvin Hosseini from UBC, Connor Clausen from Regina, former Regina Thunder player too, and Manitoba's Matthew Stokeman, Cody Newman from Alberta. And I've got to mention Ethan Vibert, Miller Marauder, who spent his entire collegiate career with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, winning 1 national title. And 4 receivers for the receiving group, I should say, not 4 receivers. Daniel Weeb from the U of S, Samuel Davenport from UBC, Colby Herford from Alberta. And for the running backs, Manitoba's Braden Stubbs, UBC's Isaiah Knight, who got some interest from the NFL, including the Chargers, and no Can West players in terms of quarterback. So, yeah, it'll be outstanding. Here in Regina, the Combine set, the skill showcase from the 21st to the 23rd. Prospects will take on the bench press, vertical jump, 40-yard dash, along with 3-cone shuttle and broad jump. on the Friday. Then they'll strap on the pads and take to the field for 2 days of on-field practices on Saturday, March 22nd and Sunday, March 23rd. It's the annual CFL Combine in the heartland of football, Regina. From the don't take things for granted file, we saw that terrible accident in D.C. where that plane carrying 60 passengers, figure skaters, coaches, and skaters from the U.S. and some from Russia gets knocked out of the air by a military helicopter, a Black Hawk helicopter, and there were no survivors in the helicopter or in the plane. That's just tragic. And I had touched on this before in the last episode. Kelly Krupe is a high school basketball coach and teacher at Belgoni Greenall. He's also big in the basketball community in Momart, or he was, as he got that program off the ground. And he's well known in the basketball community here in Regina and surrounding area. And a guy that plays church league basketball to stay in shape, 46-year-old guy, scrambling for a ball recently in a game in a gymnasium and smashed into the wall and destroyed a C4 vertebrae, paralyzed. And I was going to have his son Leighton on, who I met in the gym, a fine young man, as I mentioned in the last podcast episode. And I don't want to air any medical information here about the family, but things haven't been looking so good for Kelly. Not like they were great before, but he had pulled through. It was touch and go before. He pulled through, but now things have kind of taken a turn for the worse. And so as I talk right now, I'm just telling you to pray for the Krupe family. Yeah. And they got a GoFundMe page, and I'm hoping to raise some money. You'll see the link for the GoFundMe page in the comments section of this podcast. Please click on it. Please donate. I'm hoping to have Leighton on the show, but he's just not up to it right now. Like I said, it's touch and go with his dad. So have prayers for the Krupe family and Kelly, because he touched a lot of lives. Good sporting figure in our community. Want to thank our sponsors, Ward Tirecraft, 101 Dudney Avenue. Go see Michael Barth and the gang. My son's going in to get his vehicle looked at, and I'm getting new skins on my Nissan Qashqai. Go check out District Brewing, their passion fruit lime and mango lime super squeeze seltzers. They've got other things too, IPA, their Pilsner, light beer, you name it. Outstanding product there from our friends at District Brewing, Tim Young and the gang. Also, AGT Foods Canada, Murad, El Khatib, his brother Omar, and of course Murad's son Michelle. Murad and Michelle really instrumental in the football world, helping out the Riders, but also helping out the Regina Ride and the Regina Thunder. Gerhard Studios, Nicole and Dean. Dean just had a birthday. It doesn't look a day over 29. Okay, maybe a little over 29, but not much more over 29. So thanks to them. Also want to thank Paul Waldo at Royal LePage, getting the real estate game with the three-time Grey Cup champ, 306-502-5355. And am I missing somebody here off the top of my head? Got a lot of sponsors. Hammer Time Roofing for sponsoring my shirts, which I'll have out in about 2 weeks' time. The Our Balls Are Bigger shirts. And I'm trying to think, who else am I? Oh, Boys Next Door window cleaning, also in snow removal, and the track lighting that, it's for Christmas, but you can set the lights to look any way you want for it. Like, if the Oiler game's on tonight, I got them Oiler blue and orange, or the Riders during the season, or whatever team my kid ends up on. If he's a Stampeder, it'll be red and white for me. Knock on wood. He gets drafted. Anyway, that's going to do it for my time. Coming up on the next installment, we're going to hear from Jackson Finley, one of the top prospects coming up in the CFL draft from Western. Well, he's from the Western program, but he's out from the North Vancouver area. We're also going to hear from Cal Filson, a Chicago Blackhawks scout, helped the Seattle Thunderbirds with their great success recently in the Western Hockey League, and a former Junior B captain of the Assiniboia Southern Rebels. He'll be on the show. And we're also going to catch up with Glenn Love, the former CFL player who is battling ALS. And we'll talk about his GoFundMe page and what he's going through, because that is... for a lot of people, that's been a death sentence, but he is going to fight it, and we're going to see about helping him fight it. That will do it for the show. Thank you very much. Do yourself a favor if you haven't. Go to the YouTube page, Ballsy Uncut. Hit the subscribe button, and you will always know when an episode is out. Tell all your friends. That's how we grow this thing.